All right, I'm talking with Amy Goodman and Nicole Salazar, both of whom were recently arrested by the police as they covered the protests at the RNC. I'd like each of you to tell me a little bit about what you experienced. Amy, can we start with you?
Well, yes. I'll start off just by saying I got a call about 4 o'clock on Monday. That was Labor Day. We were here at the convention center at the Excel Center. I was interviewing delegates from the hottest state, that's Alaska, and then headed over to Minnesota. And as I went into the Minnesota delegation, I got a call from producer Mike Burke, and he said that our 2 other producers, Nicole Salazar and Trufa were getting arrested. I was with Rick Rowley of Big Noise Films, and we raced off by foot to try to stop them from being taken away, to take into jail. So we arrived about 20 minutes later. There was a police line of riot police, shields down on their faces, batons at the ready position, knee pads, the works, the RoboCop look, and there was a long line of them. So I ran up to them, and I came from the convention floor. I had full credentials, top security credentials to be with senators and delegates and Congress members and whoever happened to be roaming around, perhaps even a presidential candidate or vice presidential candidate. So as I ran up, I said to the police, Goodman, our producers have been arrested. We need to get them out. They're credentialed. Can I talk to a commanding officer? They immediately whisked me through the police line, twisted my arms back, forcibly put these hard plastic handcuffs on me that kind of dig into your wrists.
And this is simply after you asked the question. There was no prelude to that?
Nothing. In fact, the videotape, which is the most watched videotape on YouTube right now, more than 500,000 hits, is very short. And someone said to me, well, why don't you show us the whole beginning, not just when the interaction took place. I said, that was the whole thing. We ran up so fast. And just as I ran up to them, I said, I'd like to speak to your commanding officer. Our producers have been arrested. They're credentialed. We need to get them released. And they whisked me behind the line, threw back my arms, handcuffed me, brought me to the wall, and pushed me down on the ground. I said, I demand to see Nicole Salazar and Trufa. I heard that they had been bloodied, that they had been hurt. I couldn't see Nicole anywhere. I saw Sharif across the parking lot, and he was fully credentialed. He was handcuffed, and he had blood dripping down one of his arms. And then I tried to find out, when I saw Sharif, I asked him what happened to Nicole, but Nicole was right here. I ended up seeing her in the police wagon when we were being taken off to jail. But Nicole, this had started before 4 o'clock for her, when she ran down from her office, which was right there, after hearing a commotion. Nicole?
Well, let me turn to Nicole.
Yeah, well, basically, Sharif Abdel-Kadous and I, another producer at Democracy Now!, we'd been out filming that morning the peaceful protest of 30,000 anti-war protesters here in St. Paul. We had just returned to our office, and we were digitizing some of our material from that morning and looking at it. When we saw riot police from the window of the office moving down the street, at this point, we became curious. We wanted to know what was going on. I grabbed my camera, Sharif grabbed a microphone, and we ran out the door. We only got maybe a few blocks from our office, which is temporarily, while we're here in St. Paul in the downtown area, right near 7th and Jackson Street. So we got to this intersection just a few blocks from the office and found ourselves sort of caught in the middle of 4 or 5 different collections of officers, some in riot gear, some on bicycles, some in fatigues, a whole variety. And we know afterwards that some are Minneapolis, some are St. Paul, some are Secret Service. There's a whole slew of security personnel here. So basically, we were there. We were filming. I'd be filming officers shooting rubber bullets into the crowd. Then Sharif would tap me on the shoulder. I would turn. People would be getting pepper sprayed in the face. It was a pretty active scene.
Now, at this point, were they engaging with the anarchists? Is that what was going on?
They were engaging with protesters, with people out on the street. I don't know who they were. Like I said, we just ran out the door. But yes, at this point, the officers began sort of trying to push the crowd out of this intersection. Sharif and I started running. Then from another street, riot police started coming up the street, and this is how we ended up getting sort of funneled into this parking lot where these arrests ended up taking place. I was filming the entire time, and I had my camera, and I was sort of running backwards. I filmed one officer say to another person who was filming, get back. And he said, cool it, I'm Associated Press. And he said, I don't care. I kept running backwards. The riot police are moving in on me at this point. Still filming. One protester running by in the direction the police, asked us to go. She's knocked over forcefully from behind with a wooden baton with an officer in full riot gear. At this point they're getting close to me. I'm running backwards, and I try and sort of duck between some of the cars in the parking lot to get out of their way. But they weren't interested in me getting out of their way. And I'm holding up my press badge at this point, my Democracy Now! Press pass that's right here. I'm holding it up and I'm shouting press, press. And in my right hand I have my camera. And it's very frightening. And at that moment they basically just overwhelmed me, slammed me back against a car, and someone grabbed my arms from behind, threw me to the ground, said get your face on the ground. And I was still shouting press. I was trying to hold on to my camera, but there was really nothing I could do. I wasn't trying to resist. I was just so overwhelmed. I got a foot on my back and someone holding my face to the ground. My face was bleeding, and I just basically lay there. And at that moment, that's when my coworker Sharif came around, and he was also holding up his credentials, which included the RNC credentials. And he was saying, this is my colleague. We're press. We're credentialed. Please let us go. And at that point, he was also grabbed. He was thrown against the wall. Kicked in the chest a few times and brought to the ground. So my arrest is on tape, his isn't, but this is the sort of thing that was happening all around us.
Have you gotten any sort of apology at all from the police who were involved, from law enforcement?
Far from that. We went to a news conference today because the city attorney county city attorney was speaking, and they said that they're deciding whether or not to follow through on the charges. Sharif and Nicole were, when they were arrested, the police said they were arresting them for PC riot, which is probable cause riot. They arrested me for misdemeanor, obstructing, interestingly enough, a peace officer. But because it was a felony when we were put in the police van, Nicole and I were separated. She went to jail and I went to the police garage where the cages were set up for protesters. I was processed through for a while, for a couple hours, and then I got out and they got out after because of outcry, because of pressure that was brought. But the fact is we all face charges. I have been charged, and the charges of the felony charge of PC riot looms over them. We thought at the news conference today they were announcing that they would not be filing charges, but it was far from the truth. They said they're weighing this. They also said they had not charged any journalists, and then I stood up and I said, well, you've charged me, and they said, oh, well, that's true. So if I hadn't been there, it wouldn't have been said. Now, yesterday I interviewed the St. Paul police chief when he held his news conference, John Harrington, and I said to him, how are journalists supposed to operate in this kind of atmosphere? When we're arrested, when we show our credentials, he said, we could embed with the mobile field force. Like Iraq, when you embed with the troops. So that's the model now for reporting at home. And in fact, on our piece today on democracynow.org, Rick Rowley showed trying to go through the riot police, and they stopped him, but there was a reporter in the middle of the troops, and it was a Fox reporter. She was embedded. No, that is not the way. I mean, that has brought the media to an all-time low in this country. When you're embedded with, when you feel threatened by anything outside, you are a part of this unit. We believe that in America, you should be able to report independently. In fact, that's what's going to save this country, and that's why this is so serious. So I encourage people to go to our website, democracynow.org, look at the chilling video that Nicole took of her videotaping her own violent arrest as the police moved in on her and said, put your face in the ground. And then we're pushing her into the ground and pulling her leg, and Sharif being bloodied as well. With the Secret Service, when we showed them our credentials, they ripped them off of us. It's just unacceptable. We need less secrecy in this country, not more. And we're going to challenge this.
Well, I'm sorry this happened to both of you, and I hope that it ends very quickly.
Well, thank you. And thanks for your work.